Well, hello everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. I'm very excited to have legendary writer, artist extraordinaire, Mr. Richard Pace. You know him from DC, Marvel, Vault. I mean, you've worked for almost every major publisher. We were just talking before you hit record, all your history. And Richard, it's just such an honor to be able to meet you. I'm a big fan of yours. Your Batman, what was it called? The Doom. That came of
That came
Gotham.
to Gotham.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that three issue arc, and then obviously we were talking Conan and your art there. But yeah, absolutely honored to be able to meet you, sir, and happy to have you, my friend.
I'm really happy to be here. I don't know if legendary applies. There's people I think are legendary.
Yeah.
In fact, in the book we're going to be talking about, I'm going to have a little section on my influences.
Oh,
And my influences are true legends: Frank Frazetta, Mike Mignola, Bernie Wrightson, Bill Sienkiewicz. And I'm going to be like showcasing some of their work and talking about how big an influence when they hit me in my career and what I took from them. So those are the true legends. I'm a piker compared to those guys. So
I don't know. I feel like when you start your career in the early 90s and you're still going strong, I think there's a lot to say about that. That means that people love your art and they keep coming back for more. And that's not, I don't think everyone could say that, Richard. And man, that's pretty impressive. And you've touched every major publisher. It's incredible.
I think the one biggie I've never worked for was Valiant.
Oh, Valiant.
Um, yeah, yeah. Although their history is kind of weirdly spot. Like
Yeah.
when they were at their peak, I was definitely not their cup of tea. I was still trying to do. I mean, doing pit and like really over the top, um, over like really high energy, high volume comics, which I kind of miss doing.
Yeah.
Um, at some point, I'm going to go back to do a project just like that. But at that point, they were like doing that, and then when they got brought Joe Quesada in, which was this Ninjak stuff was gorgeous.
Yeah.
They only had a number of guys, and they just wanted like the top dogs, and I was nowhere near a top dog at that time. And I totally understood that, and then they went away.
Yeah.
So,
Did
and
you
yeah,
ever reach out to Danish when he came in as the owner and was it 2010, 2012, somewhere in there?
no, but I did work. I did do a story with them for Bad Idea.
Oh, bad. Yeah.
Uh, I yeah, I wrote a story and Chris Minton illustrated it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Great little horror story
Yeah.
about someone who collected little, essentially Lovecraftian squids, and it was just great. Chris decided to color it, and it was just this beautiful little story. And because it's Bad Idea, it kind of came and went. Every once in a while, I sign a copy, but it's kind of a surprise to see it in the wild.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
business model up to this point has been a little different. The way Dinesh has handled now, obviously they're getting more traditional now, where you could actually purchase their comics through Learner. So a lot more comic book stores are picking them up. But for a while, he had this business model where like the top 200 stores was all that he was selling to.
yeah,
Obviously, there's a
yeah.
business model that he's working on that, which must have been successful because they've kind of exploded now. I think Cul-de-sac is their latest one with Wayshack on art, which looks fabulous. It
It's
comes out
excellent.
tomorrow, but and then was it Planet Death? The first issue of that was fabulous. So I feel like more's coming out, but you're right. I don't think that's a reflection of you. I think that's just a reflection of Dinish's business model at the beginning with Bad Idea. It was really hard for fans to get a hold of it as well.
Well, it's because I get to a comic shop. I'm trying to be better about it.
Uh,
My son and I now have a favorite comic shop we go to like every month or so. But there was a period, especially since COVID, a period where I was going maybe once every 6 months, and I was missing so much stuff, especially Bad Idea stuff because it's like come and gone, right? Um, no, their stuff is, and it's I talked to them about writing some projects with them, and they weren't a good fit, but they're really good people. And he actually gave me some behind the scenes look at their business model, and it made perfect sense.
yeah.
I know retailers are scratching their heads because it wasn't a business model that really incorporated them in a largely functional way. But for a smaller publisher, it was really smart. It was really smart. It allowed them to, I think, pivot to what they're doing now.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Dinesh. I'm a big EXO Man of War fan, Ninjak, all that good stuff. I read it a little bit in the early 90s, but really it was that kind of mid 2000s that I got hooked with Robert on writing duties with EXO, and it was just a really fun time. And I think they won several awards, if I'm not mistaken, as Publisher of the Year. I think 2 out of 3 years they won. So I trust him. He's obviously a very smart man. But yeah, their business model was probably very good for them, but it was a little hard. So I'm glad that more of those comics are coming out because I do love the art and the stories are very unique. Very similar to like a distillery. It's a lot of stories that you might not expect, and when you jump in, they're really unique and in a good way.
Yeah. It's the format threw me off a bit first. And I think the format um has initially threw off some of the artists working on the books too. I could see where they're struggling with like the magazine format without the European experience of working for Ben Designé. Um, and like for the cover I showed you, which I can't show now. I'm working on a slightly wider piece of paper just to incorporate the 8.5 by 11 print size. Um, it's a different way to design your page. You need some actual design experience to flip from the traditional 11 by 17 artboard to, say, in this case, a 12 by 17 sorry, 12.5 by 17 artboard.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, if I do more work from there, I'll probably actually work slightly larger than this, just to have the same reduction of the line work. And not to just pick on them, because I just think it's an adjustment for artists. If you look at when DC did those Black Label books, a lot of them weren't comic size; they were like essentially magazine size as well. A lot of artists they just drew on the 11 by 17, but they just drew it like essentially instead of 150% up, drew 120% up.
Mm,
And you can see it in the reproduction of line quality. It just came out chunkier.
mm.
And yeah, it's a bit of an adjustment, I think, for a lot of artists. Not so much for the writers, because it's still just visual storytelling. If you're a good comics writer, the page shape doesn't matter to you as much unless you're Alan Moore and you take everything into account. But I think the step for the artist is a little higher, but they got top tier people working there with Distillery, and their design senses. Oh my God, the design sense for not just the books, but all the stuff they do around the books, like their toys and all that stuff. It's amazing. So very impressed with Distillery as a company.
Well, Richard, with the career that you've had and all the characters that you've touched over the 30 years, I don't know if this is an easy or a hard question, but do you have something that's kind of a favorite of yours that maybe you're most proud of over this time frame of either a character that you've been able to touch or maybe a project that you were able to work on, or is it too hard? It's like picking your favorite child type thing.
It's more about all my mistakes glare at me. I think okay, this is a weird thing because almost no one cares about this book anymore. Um, I started at Marvel. I worked on the Vampire Lestat and Mummy and like some really really terrible fully paid comics before I got into Marvel. My first work at Marvel was this book called Terror Incorporated, and I got the job. I thought I was ready. While I'm working on the first issue, I realized, God, well, my editor, a guy named Mark McLaren, was really really good teacher. He held my hand through it, and by the time I finished my Terror Incorporated, the last issue was like the best comic I had ever drawn. And I went from there to an editor named Rob Tokar, who was editing all the New Warriors books.
Yeah.
And he had this weird little round robin thing. He had a bunch of artists he wanted to try out to take over New Warriors because Derek Robertson was leaving. And and so I got to do like 6 pages of New Warriors and a few pages of Night Thrasher and I think a few pages of another book. And then he decided that I was the guy, which was considering the people I was up against. That was flattering as hell. But it was essentially landing on my feet running, going from essentially a quasi horror superhero book to a real superhero book. And I think Fabian could see my shortcomings right off the bat. I think by my third issue, he did an issue about these bad guys called Psionics, and he essentially wrote a horror superhero story for me to draw. And I think in terms of my growth as an artist, that was a huge, that was my biggest step up for any project I ever did. First couple issues, New Warriors, I got a sense of what I was doing. I was getting used to the anchor, great anchor named Bruce Patterson. And but yeah, this one issue, I was moving the camera exactly where I had to go. It was a dark and moody story, so I was allowed to use all the shadows and lighting stuff I always loved to do at the see in comics, Bernie Wrightson and all that stuff. And yeah, I think of everything I worked on, even though there's stuff I've done since that are technically far more proficient. I think that issue, it'd be great if I could remember the issue number. Um, but it was probably the biggest single growth step in my career as a comic artist.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, I mean, for the writer to be able to understand your comfort zone and to create a story around that to help build that confidence probably was a huge help as well, right?
It really was. And Fabian left like shortly after. I think I only drew like four full issues because I ended up leaving because the new writer I just did not like. His sensibility for the characters because I went as soon as I got the book, I went and read everything. Right. So I got a sense of what Fabian was doing. I understood what he was doing with the direction. And so Fabian leaves. He decided he was done with New Warriors. He'd written over 50 issues. That's a long run. He'd
Yeah.
written over 50 issues of New Warriors and he'd done all these crossovers and New Warriors, all the other stuff. So he'd probably written like 75 to 100 New Warrior stories. So he was done. He was ready to retire from New Warriors. And so I got to meet with him after, and this is already after I left. And he said, you weren't the guy I would have hired for New Warriors, but if I was doing Doc Strange, you would be the first in line. And I just said, damn, why didn't Fabian take over Doc Strange? I just imagined 12 issues of me and Fabian doing Doc Strange would have been pretty baller.
That
So
would have been amazing.
yeah,
Incredible. Well, let's talk about your book on Zoop. So I have been talking a lot about Zoop. I've gotten to know Jordan over the last couple years, and I'm a
yeah,
big fan of Zoop. I love their business model, especially from like a
yeah.
creator standpoint. It's very creator
It's,
friendly since they take a lot of that burden that like a Kickstarter
yes,
or an Indiegogo where you're much more hands-on. Not everybody has the time for that, especially if you're, like yourself, you've been a professional for a long time. You got deadlines to have to stop
yeah,
everything and then, box up 150 issues of something that's mail out. It's just that's a stress level that
yeah.
I don't think anybody really likes, but it's a little bit more difficult. So, can you talk about a little bit how did you get connected to Zoom? How did you find out about them, or did you already know about them and reach out to them?
I had seen them posting online in a few spots. Then I was at Heroes Con. Um, And I believe I'm pretty sure it was Jordan who came up and talked to me. And we had a great talk. He gave me his card. Um, I told him my trepidations about crowdfunding at the time. This is pre-COVID. And um, and and he totally put those in the context of what he's doing. And but that put them on the map enough for me to actually look at their site and pay attention to it for a while. And shortly thereafter, I started doing. I did I call it Witchtober because I don't want to say Inktober because the guy who came up with it says he owns it now. So I came up with Witchtober. So I ended up drawing a witch a day for a whole month. And when I started, I thought, well, I'll just draw a witch every week. And I enjoyed drawing them so much, I drew one every day. And it was so stupidly popular. And my art reps, oh, we gotta sell these, we gotta sell these. And I think we put the first 12 up. So 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, we put the first 12 of the witch drawings I did, and pretty much all of them went. And in like 2, 3 days, and I'm like, oh, these are really popular. And so right after that, I said, well, I'm going to keep going. And I started doing this thing called Witchy Wednesday. And that went really, really well until Instagram got really weird about drawing nudity, which apparently wasn't a problem with it prior to this. It's like pulling my posts and like threatening to kill my account. And I'm like, well, that's no good.
Wow.
But I really enjoyed drawing the witches. So I would censor the drawings, and some of them were still, even with like nothing visible, no boobs, they'd still get yanked. just because everything's done with bots. They don't have humans doing this. It's work, and they'd have to pay a human. Um, but as I'm doing the Witchy Wednesdays, I realized I got to do something with this. And I had a few publishers come to me, smaller publishers. Oh, we want to do a book of your witches. And I said, all right, well, how much are you going to pay for it? And he said, oh no, we're going to crowdfund it. And I was like, I've had some experience with small publishers who crowdfund artists' books for them, and they take a pretty exorbitant fee, and you can't really trust the accounting. No names. I just had some friends who had some bad experiences, and I went, well, if they're going to crowdfund it, which Zoop told me they do, that's the go.
Yeah.
And because they have the fulfillment, they do PR, they do a lot of the legwork that a lot of professionals just don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to them about Coven, the first collection of the witches, and it went really, really well. It was, I think we almost quintupled our initial funding goal.
Wow.
Yeah. So it did pretty. And in fact, I was just talking to Eric. Was it Eric? I think it was Eric. Yeah. He just added some more artwork, the last week's worth of Devil Dames and Witch drawings to the campaign page, and some signed, unsigned, and remarked copies of Coven to the campaign. So people can now get. I'm going to be posting about it tomorrow,
Yeah.
Or today if this goes up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so if you missed out on Coven and you wanted a remarked or signed or just a regular copy, that's the way to get it.
Yeah.
It'll be part of the campaign. And while you're there, you could perhaps back my 300-page hardcover art book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a deal. I mean, if you look at an omnibus from like a Marvel or DC, which I have quite a few because, I like to have some of those big giant stories. It looks really nice on the shelf. I mean, those go for $100 to $140 for one of those, and they're probably about,
Yeah.
maybe 300 or 400 pages. So I think, well, we'll pull it up. Let's show people what we're looking at here, because I think the value for what you're getting with all of your amazing art, I think it's a steal, to be quite honest. So here it is
It's
right here. We're calling it Idle Hands, the Art of Richard Pace, and 300 pages. And look at that, $65 gets you in, which I think is a very fair price for what you're getting. Like you said, sometimes art books, you get through them pretty fast. That's 300 pages of, you know, 30 plus years worth of work that you've had to kind of pick and choose what you're going to put in there. Rich, I would love to find out, like, how did you choose? Like, what was the process of choosing the art and how difficult was that?
I'm still not done sorting. I'm cutting stuff. See, initially when I said 300, I took a look at what my files were. I still got most everything on my hard drive, although I did have a portable hard drive that crashed and burned while I was sorting through stuff. So I got to see if I can recover files from that.
Yikes.
But I was saying, oh, this looks, I can do 300 pages of good stuff. 300. I as the campaign's been going, I got at least 450 pages worth of stuff. And I mean, not everything's going to be one image per page. It's not going to be like, 300 images. That's it. That's all you're getting. There's going to be pages where there's like 2 to 4 images on a page. So you get a nice, because it's 8.5 by 11 books, so it's oversized. You're going to get nice reproductions of artwork, even if it's reduced size. And then some of the things I realized I have to put in there, like at the start of COVID, I did a food bank project. I realized my local food bank, people were like buying everything for themselves. They were panic shopping. And I decided, well, maybe I should panic shop too. So I went to my local grocery store. And as I walked in, the hamper they have for my local food bank was usually at least half full at that time of the week because I'm a weekly donate guy. And it was empty. I think maybe there was like a plastic bag, empty plastic bag sitting in the bottom of the hamper. That was it. So I was thinking, oh, it must be terrible because, they must have picked up on an off day just because of COVID. So I'm checking out and asked the cashier, because I'm again buying more stuff for the hamper. And he said, well, did they pick it up today? And she went, oh no, they haven't been for a week. And so that meant in the last week, no one donated anything to the food bank. And that really stuck in my craw. Um, so I went back and I contacted my then art rep, who shall not be named because he's a criminal. Uh, and I said, let's open up cheaper commissions. I said, let's do like $50 black and white, and I think I did $100 color. It might be $150 color, color commissions, and everything I'm going to get, I'm going to donate to my local food bank. And I figured I'd get 20, maybe 30. I did a similar thing for people in LA were raising money to rent out a theater for Captain Marvel for this girls charity in LA. So I think I opened up cheaper commissions for that, and I think I got to rent 20 pieces. So I think that was a good feeling to do. So I figured similar number. Food bank in Canada. How many people are going to want to support a food bank in Canada at COVID? First day over 31. I think we went close to 40.
Wow.
Our rep contacts me, says, and I'm thinking that's not too many. COVID, everyone's putting pencils down. No one's got time to work. I said, okay, let it ride. And I think we both stopped looking for 2 days. I think it went live on Wednesday. By Friday, we were over 100. And I said, stop, stop, stop. And there was a couple of people who didn't really understand the rules of like backing this. Some people just went and donated money to the food bank
Yeah.
and said, well, I donated money to the food bank. Give me a piece of art. I said, you're going to have to prove it to me, pal. So some people sent receipts, stuff like that. So they got in without me directly donating. But and my art rep took a cut too. So it fed him and his family. But I ended up, I think it was close to $8,000. I actually broke up over several food banks around my region, and they needed it because people were terrified because they weren't able to buy anything. All the stores are out.
Yeah, no, that's
So all
awesome.
those pieces, there's going to be a section called the Food Bank Project, and it's going to have all those pieces in there.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
yeah,
Well, I'm going to scroll down, Richard. Let's show some folks because you have some examples here. Here's
yeah.
some of the art right here that you could purchase, um, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, the Devil Dames were creative. I realized I can't just do all the time. As much as I love drawing them, I said, oh, I'll come up with this thing I thought about. I said, well, I like drawing. I've always done this thing with like, women with horns for some reason. I'm an old time D&D player. So it was just there in my head. So I started doing it. I said, well, after the first four drawings, I actually figured out what they're going to look like. So I call them Devil Dames, and they're really fun to do. But I wanted to keep Wednesdays for witches, but I'm missing drawing witches so much. I think tomorrow's another Wednesday, so tomorrow's gonna be another witch, or today's a Wednesday. It's gonna be witch today. But I think I'm gonna start slipping in more witches
I,
in amongst the Devil Dames just because I enjoy drawing witches.
I love it. So you got all this amazing art, and then
Yeah,
like you were saying, you have some of these comics too that people could pick up as well. We got some signed ones,
yeah,
signed with
yeah,
remarks, which is awesome. The Conan one, which I'm really
yeah.
excited about. Got Displaced up there, Hawkman, which is very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a handful of these comps that publishers have sent me over the years.
Yeah,
And once I have my personal copy that sits on my shelf until I die, and then
yeah.
my son has to figure out what the hell to do with all that stuff. He's like, what am I going to do with all this junk? Right? Um, uh, it's like as soon as I get my one copy on the shelf, I'm good. It's better to be in someone else's hands.
Yeah,
And if it helps, help me make this art book and makes them happy that they get this comic book or this collection, all the better.
yeah, that's amazing. Look at that. And then we
I
got
was really amazed. Oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Richard, sorry.
Um, last um, before they everyone got messed over by Dynamite, I did a bunch of covers for Dynamite, and I did a bunch of covers for Johnny Quest and Barbarella, and I was really amazed at the range of covers that they print out of one piece of artwork. So I get like a black and white copy. I get a color copy that had no. I think they're called Virgin editions,
Yeah,
so they had no
virgin
logo on
cover.
it. And then they get the regular one, and I think there was like one that was. I think the first Johnny Quest had a metallic version of my
Yeah.
cover, and so I sent. I just got one each of them. So I sent the big list to Zoop. I figured, oh, that's going to be a lot of single entries. One copy of this, one copy of this. They just kind of went, nope, everything here. You just sign them and they'll get it.
Yeah.
So some people are
Yeah.
gonna, oh, I really want that black and white Johnny Quest. Oh darn, I got a full color Barbarella. Darn.
Yeah, I think amongst fans, I mean, we all love Dynamite, but we always kind of tease them because they go cover crazy. When I can't remember with the first Disney book when they first got the IP for Disney, the villains. I can't
Yeah.
remember who it was, the first one that came out. They had like 40 covers for issue one. 40. And we were just laughing like, wow, but you know what? I mean, they do it
Wow.
for a reason because there's a lot of people that collect that stuff. So,
Yeah.
who am I? But we just thought, man, that's ridiculous. I think three covers is tops is all you really need. But nope,
Yeah.
they had like 40. It was insane. I think it was
Yeah.
Gargoyles. It was Gargoyles. Yeah, that it wasn't
Gargoyle's
it
fan
was
base is
Gargoyles.
deep though. I,
Yeah,
th- I think that was honestly, I'm not a huge fan of anything more than two or three covers.
yeah.
As soon as you go beyond that, you're creating, I think, market confusion. I think you can do like chase variants. If a store orders deep on your book, and you don't screw it to retailer. Like say, okay, if you order 20 copies, you get a copy of this. Right? Don't make it impossible.
Yeah.
I've seen like chase variants where like no store orders enough, so the chase variant never gets printed. So there's people collectors running around looking for chase variants that don't exist.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm okay with it because I've done so many alternate covers, so I must be. Otherwise, I'd be a hypocrite. But no, I think it's a good way to reconcile the collector nature of the comics market as well as the reader base. Reader will just get their regular copy, and that's the core of your sales. But the collectors get to scratch their itch, and especially with something like Gargoyles, my gosh, or
Yeah.
Johnny Quest, which has a huge fan base too. Still, in
Yeah.
fact, one person bought all the covers I drew for Johnny Quest. I mean the originals. So that was flattering.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here we got some examples of what fans could see in your book here, Richard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to walk us through some of these colored ones here.
These are I figured it would be important. I'm working with a very talented designer. I worked with him in Coven. His name's Aaron, and he's going to be doing all the production design work for this book. But I felt it important to give the potential backers an idea what the interior pages of the book will look like. So I put together a couple of spreads. So along with some of the sample text, like I'm going to be doing a lot of writing for this book, so people get a better context of what it was, where I was when I was doing a certain piece, what the work experience was like, what I wish I did, wish I knew better at that time. Um, so yeah, these were a bunch for Vault,
Hmm.
um, and I think I did some really strong covers for them. The woman with the helmet there, that's the version they didn't run.
Yeah. Oh,
Their legal department got a little worried about because the graffiti I put all over helmet were actually real world bands,
uh,
and so can you alter them? So I altered them digitally, and may or may not have the digital file of that, but I really like the original.
yeah.
So I figured for my art book it's safe. It's under fair use, so I'm not. It's going to be a small reproduction there, so it's going to be fine. But of
That's
that
my
batch,
favorite one of all these, and they're all amazing, but that's my favorite one, the Radio Apocalypse. I love that one.
yeah, that was I love when I can actually put the logo in the art. That's such a fun thing. But of those, my another one with the logo in there. My friend Tim Seeley
Oh yeah.
did a vampire western, and I got a bit of a reputation for doing homage covers. If I get a chance to reference Frazetta, I do.
Yeah.
In fact, the cover for Idle Hands is a bit of a sideways homage to a Bernie Wrightson piece called The Council to a Minion, which hopefully I'll be able to reproduce in this book. I'm waiting for permission for that.
Yeah.
But I got to do High Plains Drifter reference, the movie poster for that bottom right cover there. So
Yeah.
instead of Clint Eastwood, I put the vampire, and then I put the logo on the wood sign hanging behind her, sort of High Plains Drifter. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's incredible. The detail is insane.
Thank you. And I
Incredible.
color all my own covers too.
You do all
I
the coloring too?
Yeah, yeah. I
I mean,
started coloring myself for Second Coming,
oh,
and I realized I draw so specifically for color. Either I'm working specifically for black and white, then I know what I'm doing, or I'm drawing knowing what I'm going to do in the color, and I know what I'm doing. And I had a recent experience where I got asked to draw for black and white and color, which messed with me terribly. Um, and everything took longer, and I wasn't happy with the work. No one was happy with the work, but I got to do some good stuff and some mediocre stuff. But no, it's like the Viking horror book I'm working on. We Bring Only Death. I'm coloring everything. I have a flatter. I have a really, really high quality flatter who makes coloring possible because I'm. It will take me 2-3 hours to. I don't know if you're familiar with the term flatting. That somebody
no.
basically puts in like flat local areas of color in, like if the heads um, all the heads will have a flesh tone in it,
No.
right, type of thing, and then I can just select it and I can do digital painting inside there. And I've had some tell me explicitly what I'm doing is digital painting, not comic coloring, and I get that because I'm slow. But my flatting, just to select everything, get all those colors in there, I'm terribly slow. I'll send 10 pages to my flatter. He's got a little studio, and for essentially dollars, I'll get them back in like the next day or two, and it'll be ready for me to color. And yeah, so I love designing the page, knowing the colors that I'm going to be putting in it, and how I control the storytelling. The color is so much a storytelling tool, and having that control over how I move the palette to have the viewer understand the story through color and the drawings and the text and everything is really, really a powerful tool to have as a storyteller.
Yeah. Now, just from like a penciling to inking to coloring, um, do you think that if you're a traditional great artist from a pencil and inking standpoint, does that make it easier to be a colorist? Or in my eyes, it's like two different, almost completely different skill sets. So you could be a really good artist, but not necessarily a good colorist. In your experience, since you do both, what is your thoughts on that? Because I don't do either.
I'm co- uh, I come at it from a slightly different way. When I decided I wanted to do comics, when I got serious about it, pretty much going to art school, I wanted to be Bill Sienkiewicz. I wanted to do Electro Assassin. I wanted to do Blood, a Tale, the Kent Williams, Jim. I talked to Jim DeMatteis about working with him still. I mean, it's like he's one of the few writers who I know right off the bat I'd get his story beats.
Yeah.
Um, Moonshadow is another perfect book. I wanted to be a comics painter, and barring that, I wanted to work at Vertigo. And so I'm my first professional work after painting Vampire Lestat and painting The Mummy was working for Marvel because Vertigo just didn't want me, and I get it. Okay, in hindsight, I was like, "Well, I'm a scratchy guy. They like scratchy guys." Um, but Marvel wanted me, and so my skill set grew in the pen and ink, basically because I was penciling all the time. So I had an increasing understanding of line. But I'd spent years painting coming up to this. So I just had this sense of color in my head. I had actually done a lot of illustration work, fully painted illustration work, just pre-digital. So I was doing a lot of acrylic paintings and stuff for different clients. And that was there. So I had that painting experience. And in fact, there's going to be some paintings. Oh, there we go. Some of these pieces here, the Hellboy,
Yeah.
the Rocket and Groot, those are all done in paint.
Incredible.
I think all three of those are in gouache.
Yeah.
And I love painting. In fact, I still paint like as often as I can. Sometimes I'll just paint like I did some fan art from the last, so I got to paint Ellie and Well, Pedro Pascal would be fun to paint. And they're going to be in the book too.
Yeah.
And we'll give it. I love doing fully painted commissions. But there's a part of me that approaches color as a painter, not as a colorist, because I've been told very explicitly that, in fact, I was told by Laverne Kanzerski, probably one of the premier or pioneer colorists in comic books, that what I do is digital painting, not coloring for comics, because coloring for comics is very much about understanding the graphics of the storytelling page, where you're separating the foreground and background. And if you do narrative work as well, that's great. I think the coloring on the Sean Phillips books that he does with Ed Brubaker, the storytelling and the color there is so perfect. His son is such a good colorist. But I can't approach it like that. I have to look at it. Okay, I have to paint this. I have to add volume, and I have to add warming pools, and I have to do all this stuff. And it just for me, it's a slower process. But I get the results I want out of it. So technically, I'm still painting comics.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, these are
Yeah.
just incredible. Look at
I
that.
just really like to answer your question. I didn't answer your
Oh,
question.
you did. Yeah.
I think,
Just kind of go, please.
well,
Yeah,
well,
please.
okay. So I don't think, especially if your only desire was ever pencil and ink or comic book, I don't necessarily think that gives you the background to really understand color. But I think the newer generation, the artists who've come up wholly digital, wholly on Photoshop or Mega Studio or ArtRage or any of the digital platforms, the color's right there. It's in a program. You don't have to go out and buy your expensive, paint. You don't have to buy your watercolors and gouache and acrylics. The color's right there, and a lot of these digital artists, this is the water they swim in. So art's full color. That's just what they do. So you get a lot of these artists, these digital artists who do comic books, and the color is part of the job for them. And I'm envious of them, to grow up with that type of tool to make you a more complete artist. So you can focus on the drawing, but when you got the drawing, you immediately go to color and you understand the color. You're making all these amazing mistakes and learning all the time. Whereas when I started, I was hired as a penciler, so I got to focus on pencils. I think for about a year, and then I started inking a little bit on the side, but no one was giving me inking work. And I think my first pencil inking work was a one shot for no, it was a short story for Dale Keown for Pitt, one half, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And I was given this. It was supposed to be an 8-page story, but the plot is written with something like 20 pages. I had a lot of stuff that didn't make any sense, so I asked Dale if I could rewrite it a bit just to make it work in 8 pages. He said, "Sure." So I got my first real writing chops worked out, and so I got the ink. And I actually got to ink it almost by accident because we gave it to an inker who didn't understand what I was doing with my pencils. He was very much in the Rob Liefeld tradition at the time.
Yeah.
And so the inks came in, and Dale called me, and he didn't know what to say because he knew it was bad. And I came looking at these pages, and I'm like, well, I got photocopies of the pencils. So I turned my photocopies into ink pages. So that was my first real inking experience. And then right after that, he greenlit a Pitt one shot. And so this is suddenly me. I not only wrote and then ended up inking an 8-page story. I ended up, writing, drawing, and inking a 22-page story.
Yeah.
And I put more writing into that one issue of Pitt that I think he'd gotten the Pitt than even at that point. More character, more action.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting me the writing job on Pitt for a while. So that was another formative experience. And I honestly think that Pitt book got me a bunch of jobs after too. So that was pretty. And at that point, it's like suddenly I ended up getting a bunch of writing gigs that ended up not going anywhere. I got Dark Horse was doing Universal Monsters, and they gave me Invisible Man to write and adapt. And on like 12, 15 pages, I still have the pencils. 12, 15 pages into penciling it, and the entire line get canceled. So that was interesting. I really good editor, Chris Cooper, who was editing Blade at the time, said, "Hey, yeah, you want to do a fill-in on Blade, writing drama?" So I wrote a story about time traveling vampires from the future pop into New York, and they come from the future because they come from an irradiated future where human blood is incredibly rare, and drinking irradiated human blood is killing them. So I have time traveling vampires in New York during the day, and they hit rush hour gridlock in New York City, and they're like just pulling people out of the cars and like just sucking blood out of them into these tanks in their hover bikes. And then Blade shows up and he shuts them down before they have to flee. I said, well, that gives us villains, possibly in the future. And the editor loved it. So I just finished writing it, get paid for the writing. I'm literally laying out the book. And then the editor gets the word that the book's canceled.
Oh.
He says, we're only going to have 3 issues left. So I want to give the creative team the 3 issues of work. And I totally understood that. Yeah. But right after that, I'm in New York Comic Con. I'm talking to the then editor in chief of Vampirella. And I said, "Oh yeah, I love vampires. I was just supposed to do Blade the Vampire, but this happened." So I gave her the pitch. She said, "Can you make that a Vampirella story?" So I went, "All right, yeah, cool. I can do this Vampirella." And I immediately came up with like, "Oh, you know what? Okay, so we're doing time travel, and you're allowing me to do a miniseries." My description as 1 issue story became like a miniseries in the discussion with her. So all of a sudden, I had alternate future vampire version of one of the incidental characters who travels back in time. She's confronted with herself before she's a vampire. So a little bit of like, what the heck's going on? And then I got all these cybernetic vampires who I had so much fun designing. I had one vampire who didn't have a bottom jaw, but he had like a tube that came out that was his vacuum tube for sucking blood. And had all these weird bits, and Vampirella had already been established essentially as a superhero in first comics at the time. So I had this great sequence where one of these vampires grabs her by surprise on his hover bikes, and he's driving down a busy nighttime street. So all these cars are parked along the side of the street. So he's slamming her in the cars to keep her disoriented until she can, recombobulate and then take the guy out. So I just had all these like over the top, insane things. And then there was some other stuff going on in the Harris Comics. And again, I read everything I could get my hands on. So they had like the Rook, and they had some other time travel stuff. So I said, well, you know what? You got to have steady time travel villains and stuff. So I came up with a weirdly alien time traveler who looked a bit like Rune, the old Barry Windsor Smith character, because I'd done 1 issue of Rune. And that was going to be really fun. And then all of a sudden I get the word that my editor's been fired. And I'm like, what? And I'm right in the middle of drawing this, what's supposed to be like one of those half issues that's going to go to Wizard to announce the miniseries. And I said, oh, everything's on hold. And, what? So in 1 year, I had like 3-4 projects canceled on me.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, what the heck, man? So that was an interesting year in comics. And then Marvel went bankrupt, and I decided it was a good time to go work in TV and illustration again for a while. Then I came back to comics. I realized I missed it too much.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you've accomplished so much. The art is incredible. Insane, man. Let's go back to the top right here just to show fans. I mean, you have 16 days, I believe it is, still to get in there. And a lot of opportunity. Here is the 300-page hardcover for $65 if you want it remarked. Here you go for $110, which is awesome. Got a little retailer bundle there too. So if you're a retailer, you could pick some up for your shop. All kinds of art still available. And then here are some samples down here. I'm going to put the link in the video to make it really easy for everyone just to click the link and head on over there and back it. You got 16 days to back it to get all this fabulous art. It looks absolutely incredible. And so look at that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a huge. I have a big library in my living room. One half of the room is a shelf full of comic books, graphic novels, and like Calvin and Hobbes, like comic strips and everything. And the bigger shelf on the opposite wall is all my art books.
Oh wow.
Like I got a whole bunch of Frazetta, Bernie Wrightson, Mignola, classic illustrators, Al Williamson, just so many artists. And I routinely spend, 80 to 150 bucks on an art book because, and they're like usually 200, 250 pages. I'm amazed that Zoop get man. I know the printing is, they got a good deal on printing. So being able to have this book for 65 bucks is kind of envious. I wish more of the artists I follow would have $65 art books. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really good price to get the history of Richard Pace. I think that's absolutely amazing. The art looks phenomenal. And I'm definitely gonna have to get me one of those Conan. I think there was four of the five left. I got to grab me one of those because I'm a big Conan fan, and I would love to have something signed by you, Richard. I think that would be incredible as part of my collection. But yeah, it looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm gonna put the link below, but I also noticed that it's actually mentioned in there, you have the Viking horror story standalone, which could be next, maybe? Is that something you're working on?
yeah, that is that. Yeah, it's called We Bring Only Death.
Ah,
And it was just my friend Joseph Schmalke, who he has this great Viking horror book called We Don't Kill Spiders.
mm,
And I've always been a Viking fan. And just in terms of mythology, that's where it started. And the weirdness, the weird mystic nature of their culture. And I said it's like the Reese's peanut butter cups of genres. If you put horror with Vikings, it's the perfect snack food. And all of a sudden I said, oh yeah, I could do that. And I think the idea hit me hardest. I was sitting next to my friend, an artist that some people know really well because he's pretty famous too, Mike Ruth. He's been wanting to do Viking comics, essentially Viking horror comics, for a long time. And so I'm chatting with him, and I come up with this idea, and he loves the idea. So I guess I have to do it now. But the problem is the ideas didn't stop. It's like a spigot opened in my brain. So all of a sudden, I got like three or four ideas, and now I got two other artists who want to do these Viking horror stories with me. I'm not going to jump and announce them yet.
yeah.
But so what's going to happen is We Bring Only Death is going to be an overall title for any Viking project I'm involved with, but I'm probably going to draw about a third of them. And it's crazy. It's yeah. So I'm probably assuming the world keeps rotating,
Yeah.
and I keep sticking to it with gravity. I think starting next year, I'm probably going to be doing one of these a year
Yeah.
that I'm writing and drawing, and then perhaps with one or two from additional artists, and to make it a complete theme, and basically writing stories that really really play to their strengths. Um, so it's that's thrilling. And again, I have two more Coven books in me. I got a book of short stories that's mostly done.
Yeah.
That's assuming again everything goes well next year. Next October will be the next Coven book,
Okay.
and that's going to be a collection of short stories, building world building essentially for all those witches. Because I can't quite let go of those witches.
Yeah.
Something about smiling girls with hats, and
Right.
and if that goes well, then there's the Coven graphic novel where I got like a nice little epic adventure story for a newly made witch
Ah,
that gets introduced in the short story collection,
yeah.
and that should tie up Coven, and of course there'll be something like 250 pages worth of material. So at that point, I'll probably put an omnibus. I'll have because at that point we're probably sold out of all the copies of Coven at that point. So then we'll probably do an omnibus, one big hardcover collection of all the witch stuff. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. You got a good like 2 or 3 year plan with a lot of fun stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, the plans would have gone a little bit faster, I think, but there's been some chaos in the world, so
Yeah.
you got to adjust, you got to change.
A little bit of
Uh,
chaos.
Yeah, and it's like I think I can talk about it. I've talked about a few other places. I talked about you before we went on there. One of the other long-term plans is as soon as space opens up for it, probably after Coven's done, I'm going to start doing full-page black and white illustrations for the original Robert E. Howard Conan stories,
Yeah.
with an eye towards doing heavily illustrated editions, reminiscent of it, and totally inspired, tip of the hat completely to Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah.
His Frankenstein book was such a landmark. Now I don't do his Franklin Booth level precision line work. I'm a sketchy, scratchy guy. Too much Bill Sienkiewicz in my artistic DNA. But I will render the hell out of these Conan pieces, and I already know several of the images going in, and the spine illustrations are going to go with it. And I just want to do the most beautiful Robert E. Howard Conan books to really pay homage to. I think Sword and Sorcery is probably going to be. I mean, Viking Horror is essentially Sword and Sorcery.
Yeah.
So this would be paying homage to the guy who really inspired.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first comic that really inspired me to do comics was Savage Sword of Conan with Big John Buscema drawing it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, so getting to combine my illustration background, because that's what I went to school for, and pay tribute to beautifully, heavily illustrated books. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. Gotta do it before I kick off this mortal coil.
Well, I'm all in for that one. Count me in, Richard. I cannot wait for that. In fact, not to change the subject, but I just I've had Sarah Frazetta on a couple times, and she has Frazetta Girls, and this is the latest
Yeah.
action figure of Conan that just came out as a
Oh,
rendition of the Frazetta cover that he did. Isn't that pretty cool?
I that is cool. Actually, I did a cover for Vault for Barbaric
Oh,
as an homage to that very Conan painting by Frazetta.
I like Barbaric too.
So that was about, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I
Yeah,
don't think if I had copies, it would have been a possible reward in the
yeah,
campaign.
yeah, yeah. Well, Richard, I can't tell you what an honor it is to have you on. I hope we could do this again. You got a lot of projects going on. I would love to have you back on to talk about those, but I've had an absolute blast getting to know you, and I can't thank you
Uh,
enough for entrusting me with your story and everything that you're working on, my friend.
well, I gotta say, this is you're a really easy interviewer. No hard questions. That's great. It's like, what does it really feel like to draw Speedball? Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, if you want to have another go around when I'm doing We Bring Only Death, I'm more than happy to do that.
I love that. I would love that.
Uh,
It would be an honor, my friend.
uh,
Richard, I can't thank you enough. I'm glad that Jordan reached out to me, and I'm glad that we were connected. And if there's anything that we could ever do for you, please let me know. In the meantime, I'm gonna blast this all over social media starting tomorrow. So if you're watching this, we did it the day before, so it's super fresh. That means you have 15 days to back this project and get this amazing art book in your hands. This is a great piece to have on your shelf from an amazing artist, creator, and writer. But Richard, thank you again. I really appreciate you.
my pleasure. This is fun.
All right, my friend. I hope you have a great rest of your night. We'll talk soon.
You got to take care.
All right, bye bye.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.